Hey. As the last session for the day, AlmarVanDerKrogt from Vireal in the Netherlands will talk about Vireal architecture. And I know very little about this, so I'm looking forward to this. Almar, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Almar van der Krogt. I have my own company, Vireal, which I try to realize La Vie Virtual, as I call it. I'm here today to challenge you, and the committee gave me this great spot in the program, so you probably think you're ready for it, or you're in need of it, I don't know. But let's see. So what's the challenge that I'm proposing to you? It's actually threefold. First two are, I want to challenge you with beauty and prestige as references for your designs. And also, that was mentioned this morning when Peter Morpho was introduced. Apparently his book made all your work relevant in the sense that he called it information architecture. And I'm sorry to say that I'm going to challenge that as well. Because in my view, my vision, I think there's a role lacking. If you take the analogy of physical architecture, where there's an architect and there's a bunch of engineers that actually calculate through what the architect envisions, and you have to translate that analogy through to our work, information architecture work. I'm missing a role. And the role that I'm missing is actually the part that a physical architect takes up, where he designs or makes the design, but next to functionality, thinks of beauty, and especially the more famous architects want to build something prestigious. So now actually what the Vireal architect, as I will be calling it, is doing is, next to designing for a functional website, also has to balance beauty and eventually try to get some prestige out of the project. Let me try to visualize it, the challenge a little bit more. On the left you see Rem Koolhaas, a famous architect. He himself is very controversial. He talks a lot, he writes a lot. There's some of his books there. And maybe some of you, or maybe most of you, know some of his works. One of his recent works is the Seattle Public Library on the right here. Very magnificent building. And actually on the left, that's his upcoming project. That's the CCTV tower in Beijing, China. So, like Rem Koolhaas, this is a well-known architect, and he really makes sure that his work is known. On the other hand, we have Peter Morpho. He's one of our big IAs. But my point is, we all know him for his books, but can we name a single website that we say, okay, that's a Morpho, that's obvious. Well, maybe you can, but well, I haven't found it. Another example, these are sketches for the design of the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but also a very magnificent building. But even the sketches already spark the imagination. Just by looking at it, you think, oh, this must become a really special building. And eventually it did. And then again, on the other side, the IA's sketches, they're good, they're nice, and they can work, but do they really spark our imagination? I don't know. Then, if you again move to some physical architecture, this is the projected Burj Dubai Tower in Dubai. They're planning it right now. It's going to be 800 meters high. So that's amazing. Also, they're already building the World Financial Center in Shanghai. Yeah, magnificent design, really tall building, but then also very feng shui with the hole in the top of the skyscraper. So what I'm wondering is, what is the next big ambitious IA or website, IA project or website is going to be?
We just saw it.
Maybe it is, but then, well, we can add some more, and I'll show you.
I'm not information architect, but can I take up the challenge?
You can, but let me first start by giving you a definition of what I understand under Vireal, and it's based on aesthetics. As I said, I'm looking for as one of the criteria for beauty. And I add 3 propositions. The first one is if you take barren land and you start doing something with it, it becomes a site. If you then start constructing something on that site, it becomes a building. But then if that building gets a certain purpose or it becomes well known, it eventually it becomes a landmark, like the Brandenburger Tor, which is in functional terms just an arch. My second proposition is if you notice something, you describe it. We do a lot of that work. But if you actually value what you see, you're going to characterize it with a name. For example, what happened to Google, it gained so much importance and even prestige that it took it up into the dictionary. And finally, I see that the finished product of our work is not just a website. There can also be a mobile website or a banner on other sites and all sorts of things. And I'd like to, in all these expressions of your work, become a virtual reality, so to say. So my point is that taking these 3 propositions and all your expressions of a website should not just be called a website because there's more elements. You should call it a Vireal, and your ambition should be to become a webmark. So to go into a little bit more detail, what is this difference that I see between design or information architecture and engineering? For example, an engineer, a building engineer, basically what he does is fight the force of gravity. He should make a design in such a way that the building doesn't collapse. In a way, information architects do the same thing. They try to set up a structure, but they're not fighting the force of gravity, but the force of irrelevance. Everything you do, you want to make sure that it still remains relevant. But again, back to a building or a bridge, your goal is to cross a stream or a river. And you can do it in several ways. There's several ways to build a bridge. And this hanging structure is one option to reach that goal. But if from an architect's point of view, you can say that there's also this criterion of beauty. I can do the same thing in a more beautiful way. And for example, the Erasmus Bridge in Rotterdam is basically the same principle. They cross the river, they have a hanging bridge, but it's a beautiful bridge to look at. And it gains much more importance. Maybe you've noticed it, but in several commercials on TV, they use the bridge in the background. Before continuing, I also want to notice that I don't want to make a gap between information architects and Vireal architects, as I call them, because I see the same interdependence that you see with architects and engineers. What I see a Vireal architect doing is take on the bigger picture and also the bigger environment to see if you can reach all these goals, also the functional goals, but also the aesthetic goals. But then the role of the information architects should still be to check, does it still make sense? Aren't you going over the top? Is there still relevance in what you do? In this case, you can make a very nice bridge, but you still have to be able to cross the river safely, and the thing shouldn't collapse. So that still stands. And as Peter Morkel mentioned this morning as well, to go back to history, I think beauty and prestige has been part of architecture in all its forms and of all ages. For example, and for those of you who went to the IA Summit in Vancouver, is it still working?
No. I heard. Yeah, it works.
For those of you who went to Vancouver, this is actually at the University of British Columbia. It's a replica of a Haida village, old Indian village, and there's lots and lots of totem poles. But actually the totem pole was put there not to give them a roof over their head, but it was an integral part of their house, of their living environment. And it was built there to impress and communicate with strangers. And also, and this is called Toguna, it's a Malinese chief house, let's say. And this is where all the men of the village would go. And one feature is that it has a really big roof. And that also was put there to impress strangers. The bigger the roof, the more impressive. And one other feature was the fact that the roof was really big, but also really low, so you could only sit under it. And the reason for that was that they thought that, okay, we're going to make important decisions in this place, so people should really be thinking before they say something. So when they were sitting and they would jump up in anger, they would bump their head. So let's explore how, with some current examples, if there's already something out there that we can call a Vireal. So let's explore the elements of the Vireal skyline, so to say. My first example is Google Ads. You've all seen them. And actually what it does, it provides you a lookout onto your environment. Google determines, depending on what you are, what surrounds you. Of course, these are still mostly commercial and not also very good looking. But they do give you an outlook on your environment. So I prefer to call them Google Editions instead of advertisements, because it's an add-on to your site that gives it a broader relevance. Still, as I said, they're not very pretty. There's different kinds of these ads, but they're not very appealing. So it could improve. And actually, I learned that Google Labs is now working on related links, which is in a way the same system, although it's not commercial anymore. And there's different varieties of links that you can show on your site. So I'm actually looking forward to how those are going to work. Then to a more intentional way of adding information to your site. This is what I want to add is also tags, especially if they're from outside your site. You can also give you an idea of what your environment is. And finally, related images that you can now get from Flickr for example, also provide a literal outlook on what surrounds your website. Now to go to my own website, I put up there just one of the features of Delicious, where it shows the links that you actually stored in Delicious. And this was not intentional, but I like very much. What happened is that when I click one of these links on my site, the site actually opens within that window. This is an example of a site by Miltos Manetas. And what you can do is you can create your own Jackson Pollock painting. So this is my attempt. But the fun thing is, it's a foreign site, but this way I pull it into my site, and now it becomes kind of an interactive art part of my site. And actually, it becomes some of the bigger virtual space that I take up with my site. Another one, and this is an animation, and one of the very early ones called the woodcutter. Really strange, but I tend to like it. And also, this becomes now almost a part of my site, although I only link to the actual animation. And the way I see it, these more artistical outlooks into the virtual world should become parts of maybe many corporate websites, just as in the headquarters of most multinational companies there are impressive art collections. So why not on their websites in a way like this? And also you could think, and if you go back to Google, there are some really big sites out there that are becoming some of a gravity point and that dominates the virtual space. So you can say, if you look at this skyline, are there any points of interest yet? Or are there any real skyscrapers out there? I think there are, and in another way, there are not. If you take Google, for example, it's a real point of gravity. It's huge. Everybody thinks of Google when they think of the internet and the other way around. By its mere existence, it provides an outlook on the rest of the internet. And also, in a lot of ways, it's reference to Google, for example, with the Google additions. However, if you look at the website of Google itself, it represents a lot, but it doesn't show it. And to me, it's like a skyscraper where you can see through. It's a see-through building in a way, which is presented by their homepage. It's nothing really. So it's functionally correct, but taken my first statement, it's not in any way beautiful, and the site as such doesn't look prestigious to me either. And I think they could add something that could make it a lot more prestigious. For example, they could show, maybe in a mashup with StumbleUpon, their latest indexations. And so it doesn't have to be functional, you don't have to be able to click on the actual site, maybe just link to it, but they could show what they find on the internet and make it maybe a little bit more inspirational. If we take the analogy a little bit further, you can also think of the internet as a place like the Earth, where you have to fight for your space. You can look at it as an ecosystem where plants, trees, they look for an open spot to get light to be able to grow or to attract insects to cross-pollinate. On the internet, you basically do the same thing. You're looking, try to find spots to attract visitors, and also try to make a lot of links, so you gain importance. From a very architect point of view, you can really take advantage of it, and it should be part of your design process. That this is actually what you're trying to do. You're not just one fixed spot that's your website, but there's all these other expressions. And one example is all the tag functionalities that come out these days. For example, big technorati that seem to appear like flowers all over websites. And I think this is a really great thing, but you should take advantage of it. You could even think of what I call a Vireal park. If you, again, look at the real world, all great castles, great cities have really nice parks that have a really important function towards the city or the buildings that they surround. They give a certain room to reflect and to actually see what is happening at the building. So I'm not actually sure what a Vireal park should look like, but I'd like it if there's a spot where you can just go in and out from a website that gives you a room, and it's not really a functional thing, but just gives you a room to reflect on what you just saw. But back to the centerpiece. How do you build a Vireal skyscraper? How do you build a site that is not only functional, but also beautiful and even prestigious? Maybe you've heard of the Chrysler building in New York. When it was built, they call it the race for the sky. There was another skyscraper built at the same point in time, and they tried to break the height record. And these two buildings, they were getting taller and taller, and the competitor, it seemed that they were going to win. But what turned out that the architect, while building this building, he was working on the top, and secretly inside they built a spire. And just when the other building was finished, they pulled up that spire, which was about 20 meters. So just by adding that spire, they won the race of the tallest building. So it had no functionality whatsoever, but it made it a very prestigious project, and they held the height record until the Empire State Building was built. And also, and just seeing these examples, it's a very beautiful building still. In order to build a Vireal skyscraper of your own, first I would say keep your history. Keep actual images or an inroad to your old website, because to show where you came from helps people determine if they what they see is an improvement. It's a pity, and we discussed it over lunch, that most of the older versions of website are not available anymore. The only place is archive.org, and you can find some stuff. But it helps people to see what has been done. The other one, and I'm not sure if you like it, put up the construction site again. For years it was a no-no, but I'm not sure that it's correct, and you shouldn't put up this one. But like with a physical building, you can put up a sign saying, okay, we're working on this, and actually provide a lookout on what is going to happen, and let people get ideas of what it can actually become. We were just discussing also at lunch that Berlin, a few years ago, it was the biggest building site of Europe or of the world. And it was really exciting because you could think or get an idea of what it would become. And now when most of the stuff actually finished, it's nice, but maybe in your dreams it was even bigger than it eventually became. And finally, show your surroundings. Add related links, Google related links to your website, so actually people can see what they should compare you with. Of course, there are still challenges left. In the real world, it's easy if you want to be prestigious, build the highest building or biggest building. On the internet, I'm not sure what the actual boundary is that you want to stretch. And also, is it worth investing? It was mentioned earlier this morning that you shouldn't build to last, but maybe you should, I'm not sure. And maybe one of the biggest challenges, in my point of view, is actually you as information architects. Do you have the ambition to become a Vireal architect and take on the additional challenge of making a beautiful and prestigious end product? And I'd say, please do be ambitious and make the architect, the information architect, the Vireal architect, the reference point for the project, for the site, and for now and for years to come. So that's it. Thank you.
Couple of questions. Gunnar.
Well, actually, I think you are looking at all the wrong places.
The wrong place.
The wrong places. It's not the website that is the beautiful thing that you should look at. It's the web as such. And it's the data. It's the way that these Italians, we saw just a few moments ago, work with information to make present information to us and to make us, enable us to work with information to change the way we live. Because a website is just a building block. It's like if we take the analogy of what Peter said this morning about the stone cutters, we're just cutting stones to build the cathedral.
Okay. Yeah. But then I would look for the one who's in charge of the web to see if we can work.
Well, you gotta look.
Yeah.
All right, you had a question.
Yeah, a few comments. I think maybe you can put this on a bit of a historical perspective. You're sitting in Remco's now, and I wonder where he's going to be in 100 years. We've seen all the riots in Paris because of these ghettos the Moroccan youth were living in, created by Le Corbusier's visions. We've seen, I live in Barcelona, and we have several thousand people going there every day to see La Pedrera, all of these Gaudi buildings. And I talk to the people who live there, and they cannot find furniture for those people. They just cannot buy beds to sleep in. And it's very difficult to find the beauty of a building, to appreciate the beauty of a building if you cannot find a toilet. And I'm talking about these big, massive penis with buildings.
No, but that's why I said I don't see it as a different role. There should always be the connection with the Vireal architect and the information architect, information engineer, who actually make sure that it still makes sense. Like with a real-life architect or a physical architect, they go to a construction engineer to make sure and put through all kind of tests that it makes sense, that it won't come down, that people can use it.
It won't come down, but the thing is that most of us live in buildings who were built by anonymous architects, and most of us are, maybe, or some of us are happy with our homes.
I'm not saying that every building or every website should be.
I think it's fairer to cite, like, compare this with architecture. I would say what you were quoting was sculpture rather than architecture. And I don't know, you say Google has no prestige. I wonder, I think that's really highly debated.
That's why we place the challenge.
On that happy note, Gunnar has a very short comment, and then I think we should eat and look at the posters. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay, short.
Well, I just wanted to add that some of the most beautiful cathedrals in the world, built in the Middle Ages, had no
Bathrooms.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.